Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to session 4B and also the final session of the Scite Summer Bootcamp. I can't believe how quickly the summer has passed and the bootcamp has passed. Thanks so much for joining today again. It's nice to see so many names that I can recognize in the chat that have been joining for at least a few of the last sessions. Awesome. Well, let's look at the next slide here. As you can see, let's just look kind of like at the journey. If you've joined since the very beginning, you recognize all of this. But we started with AI and LLMs 101, then we moved into effective prompting techniques, followed by advanced AI strategy, kind of like the behind the scenes of Scite. Last week, we had session 4A, kind of like the split session that we're in right now, discussing how to handle AI in the classroom and in academic settings. And then today, we're here today to complete the series with our AI for corporate research journey. And really, this progression that you see here has been designed to build your knowledge and skills from foundational concepts to specialized applications. And today's session will focus specifically on how corporate researchers can leverage AI tools effectively. If you missed any of the sessions, also one of my colleagues, Alejandro, in the chat, he'll send a link to the YouTube playlist where all the recordings are available. So as you can see here, and you probably know that if you attended minimum three live sessions of the bootcamp, then you're eligible for the official AI for Research certificate, which you can see displayed here on the right side. So let me launch a quick poll here just to get an idea how many of you are able to receive that, or if some of you, let me see, okay, I can't do and talk at the same time. Here it is. Okay, just launched it. If maybe you watch a few live, but some, if you're like in a different time zone, I know we have people from around the globe here. So you'd like to request the certificate because you watch a few on demand, feel free to reach out, and then me and my team, we can check and get back to you. So I'll just leave the poll open here. So feel free to fill that in, and then we can look at the next slide. So again, here today, we have a raffle, a giveaway. As I mentioned previously, it's just our way of saying thank you for spending time with us this summer. So today we're giving away $100 hotels.com voucher, which is really perfect for that maybe end of summer or weekend getaway that I'm sure you deserve. So I'll be letting the lucky winner know right after the session, and make sure that you receive that voucher. Okay, so let's look at our speakers for today. You might recognize some of us here on the call. So my name is Julia Heeson. I'm on the marketing team here at Research Solutions, and most of you have seen quite a lot of me this summer. I've been moderating throughout the bootcamp. And then joining me today are Chris Bendel and Karina Chavez from the Research Solutions team. I'll just let both of them introduce themselves briefly. How about we start with ladies first, Karina?
Thank you, Julia. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm part of the product team here at Research Solutions. And I have also a background as a researcher in the field of gene therapy and cancer. So you're welcome.
Thanks, Gary. Chris, over to you, and then I'll move forward with the slide.
Thanks very much, Julia. Yeah, Chris Bendel, VP for Product Strategy at Research Solutions. My background is in geoscience. That was my PhD. At Research Solutions, I'm focused on really understanding the needs of our customers and users, looking at what is happening in the market, especially following technology trends, and helping the company to decide, what solutions we should be developing or partnering with. And today we're going to be focusing on corporate research use cases. What I'm showing you here are a number, not all, but a number of sort of research-focused industries. And when we talk about corporate R&D, research and development, there is kind of a spectrum of industries and in terms of how research intensive they are. What I mean by that is there are some industries make a lot more use of scientific literature and also publish a lot more. Their research is publishing a lot more also in scientific journals. The most kind of research intensive industries tend to be life science focused industries. So pharma, agriculture, health, but also chemical manufacturing and material science related industries. There is a lot of research also happening in more engineering focused industries such as aerospace, automotive, ICT. A lot of innovation, however, in engineering focused companies is based on sort of engineering principles. Nevertheless, there is also a lot of scientific literature used in those industries as well. And of course, as with everyone trying to use scientific literature and information, there is that need to overcome, the information overload, and so AI increasingly used to help with those types of use cases. Here, I'm showing a generalized
I think we lost Chris here for just a second. Let's give him a moment to jump back on here. And just answering a few of the chat questions that I see right now. So feel free to reach out. I know my colleagues been sending my email address. So yeah, if you attended a few sessions because maybe you just learned about the bootcamp like halfway in, feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, I'd be happy to check that with you. Okay, I think we lost Chris. No worries. Let me just pull up the slides here, and then Karina, I'll hand it over to you. Just give me a second here, everyone. Okay, here we go. Okay. Carrie, is that fine if I kick it over to you? And then as soon as Chris is back, we can just do like jump a few slides.
I think he's back.
He is? Chris,
Yeah,
can you
he's
again?
Hi, sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
That
I
happens.
lost connection.
The last bootcamp session, right?
Yeah. All right. Where was I here? You share that?
Yeah,
And I
looks good.
think that's already big, right? Okay. All right. So yeah, what I was talking about was the corporate workflow process. So all along this process, there are a lot of different roles who are making use of scientific literature at each stage. Whether that is, at the beginning of this process, where you have roles not only from the R&D or research group, but from competitive intelligence, from the patents group, who are really trying to understand, which types of innovations, what type of research they should be doing. So, also leveraging scientific journal content in particular for understanding where there are gaps that they can focus on, and also, what their competitors are doing. Related, of course, to scientific literature like journal articles are adjacent types of data and information, such as patents, or clinical trial information, which are also leveraged for those purposes. Once a company understands, okay, where they want to innovate, then really begins sort of the in-depth research and development process, defining hypotheses, doing experiments as part of that development. Through these processes, there are, in particular for life science companies, very well-defined phases related to clinical research that they tend or kind of have to follow as it really builds towards a regulatory process. When it comes to regulatory processes, there is a big need for scientific literature again in preparing, as they move towards launching a product to ensure that they can get the correct certifications that they need for launching that product. Once launched, you then have roles such as in marketing, business development to make use of literature for supporting the information that they share with their customers. And then as we move into sort of the post-market phase, once the product is on the market, especially again in life sciences, there are very well-defined processes related to literature monitoring, pharmacovigilance, to understand not only how successful, for instance, a drug is, but also, the adverse events related to that drug. So there's a lot of different roles throughout this whole workflow, both in engineering-focused industries as well as life sciences, and in each step, making use of scientific literature and looking for ways to make that process more efficient. On this next slide, I'm listing out on the left-hand side some of those key roles within that workflow. Obviously not a complete list, because there are a very huge diversity of roles related to corporate R&D and at each stage of that process. And if you like, you're welcome to share in the chat your own role if you're working for a commercial organization and corporate R&D. So feel free to share your own role in the chat. So yeah, we have roles here on the left-hand side from information specialists and research librarians who, their goal is to help, their patrons, the other researchers in the company, find information and get access to information. But as you see, a variety of other roles from competitive intelligence through research and tech scouts to patent analysts, and those focused on regulatory processes, or especially in life science areas, medical and scientific affairs. And you can see here, a lot of the different tasks or use cases that they have, the goals that they're trying to achieve when leveraging scientific literature. And there are a lot of different things related to this that AI is showing it does very, very well in helping them to be much more efficient, much more complete, in the information that they're trying to find and synthesize and different use cases. I think at this point, while it's important to highlight all these things that AI does well, I would also like to make a note that there are some things that AI is not quite there yet, especially around regulatory processes, where it's very important to have very repeatable results from, for instance, a search, to be able to have a completely auditable sort of search process, which is needed for various regulatory processes and submissions. Large language models are not that consistent at the moment. I think you will see that this will improve a lot as various providers of these solutions look more closely at those regulatory use cases to make it more usable. But in the meantime, kind of the standard tools such as PubMed and Embase will continue to be used for those purposes. On the next slide, I want to highlight then a key issue that it's really important for researchers and other roles within corporate R&D to be aware of when wanting to use scientific literature with AI tools, whether that is to upload an article for analysis, extracting information, summarizing information, or potentially for training an AI model for internal purposes. Most users of scientific literature are focused on that first use case, wanting to use Gen AI tools to analyze content. And on the right-hand side here, I'm showing you a flowchart or decision tree of actually what a user should be doing when they are wanting to do this, when they are working for a commercial research organization. First of all, they should be looking to see whether the piece of content is open access, because if it's published under a so-called CC BY, open access license, then they are pretty much free to go and do what they want to do with that content, as long as they make the attribution with their publishing and results from that analysis. However, increasingly, publishers are publishing open access content under a CC BY NC or non-commercial license. And what this means is actually for anyone working in a commercial organization, they actually need to get additional AI rights if they want to analyze that content with a Gen AI tool. So this copyright situation is evolving a lot just in the last few years. And the reason for these restrictions is that publishers have developed terms and conditions just in the last couple of years, which basically say any touching of their content to AI tools, they needs their express permission. They have started to provide the permission in various ways. One is on the top right-hand side here through reproductions rights organizations. So these organizations, such as the Copyright Clearance Center in the US or the Copyright Licensing Agency in the UK, who both have generally global remit for licensing rights to content, have developed language for AI, using content in an AI tool or training an AI model. However, most of the larger publishers and those publishing research, which is particularly useful for corporate research, many of them are not participating in those AI rights parts of the license from those RROs. So it's important to check, even if you have an annual copyright license, whether the journal you are wanting to use the content from is actually included in that license. Since last year, major publishers in particular have been starting to provide AI rights directly to their larger customers. And that's what's shown in the next diamond here. So that's another way that people may have access to have AI rights to the content. And if none of these things are true, the last diamond on the bottom right is where Research Solutions and myself is particularly focused in the last year to provide a solution where users can immediately understand if they have rights from any of these sources already, and to allow them to actually acquire rights on an article-by-article basis. So at Research Solutions, we have essentially two ways to help users overcome this issue of AI rights to scientific literature. Through Scite.ai, as you may know from the last courses, we have a lot of publishers participating in Scite.ai. So all the snippets of original content that you see there have already been cleared for use by our platform. And as I mentioned, now, since just 1 month in Article Galaxy, which is our document delivery platform, users can now immediately see if they have AI rights already granted to content from any of those sources I mentioned, and now able to increasingly acquire AI rights on an article-by-article basis from participating publishers. So that was an introduction really to corporate R&D and some key roles and use cases, and the key issue of AI rights in relation to copyright. Now I'm going to hand over to Carrie, and she's going to focus on another key challenge for corporate research, which is reproducibility and how Scite can help.
Thank you, Chris. And can you hear me okay? Okay, super. So I'm very, very excited to be here. And yeah, we're going to discuss a little bit about a critical issue that we are facing as researchers and in research and development today, that is research fraud and reproducibility crisis. These topics have been making headlines over the past decade, and they raise a fundamental question for us. If research cannot be trusted or reproduced, what does that mean for scientific progress, and for industry, and for society as a whole? Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So let's start with fraud. For research, fraud means that it's unintentional misconduct. Things like fabricating data, falsifying results, plagiarizing work, those are what we can classify as fraud. We have some infamous cases. These include, for example, the stem cell research scandal in South Korea. Also, some of the works over there citing this false link between vaccines and autism by Andrew Wakefield and Collapse. And all of these cases remind us that fraud is rare, but it is devastating. It undermines trust in science and can have dangerous public health consequences. And not only that, it also generates large economic losses for research and development support. Although these fraud cases are dramatic, the reproducibility issue or the reproducibility crisis is far more widespread. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, what does reproducibility means? It means that if another scientist follows your methods, they can get the same results, right? In many studies, we have seen, especially in biomedicine, psychology, we fail this test, this reproducibility. The estimates suggest that more than 50% of the published findings cannot be replicated. And this can come from a variety of situations. This can come because of poor study design, small sample sizes, selective reporting, and most importantly, that is very related with what Scite can help, is publication bias. This means we can have like positive results, get more published, and the negative ones don't, okay? For example, in this research or in this work made by Rife and Collapse, they were analyzing content-aware rankings, and they noted that at least for my biomedical health sciences and life sciences, we have big issues regarding reproducibility. The proposal in where Scite can help is creating this Scite index. It can help us, like classifying how these research articles are cited by how supported they are, contrasted, or simply knowing how many people are mentioning them. This is by surfacing the citation contexts. As you can see, the lower the Scite index is, it means that it's less reproducible. So can you go to the next slide, please? We have an example of these reproducibility issues like happened a few years ago. We have here Prince and colleagues at Bayer. They were looking at 67 projects in preclinical oncology, cardiovascular, and women's health research. And they were shocked to find that only 20 to 25% of these published preclinical studies could be reproduced in their labs. That means that 3 out of 4 of these published findings were failing in this replication of the results. This is a huge problem, and because these studies were supposed to be the foundation for new drug development. And they were concluding that these results were just not robust. They were always overstating their claims, and they were also lacking the methodological rigor that was necessary to build reliable science. So can you go to the next slide, please? We can highlight the importance of the reproducibility in research. This is not just an academic problem. It also affects, pharma companies, healthcare, patients, and it is a multi-billion-dollar issue. So we can see some of these can be prevented if we can perform better, like the seek of scientific information. So if we do the things right, we can have 7.9 of the drug candidates that receive FDA approval increase. We can help in the 2.8 billion average cost to develop one approved drug, and 9 out of 10 candidate drugs fail in clinical trials too because of this, and only 5% of oncology drugs entering phase 1 are eventually approved. Can you go to the next slide, please? So what are the challenges that we have as researchers, to try to navigate through all of this content? Well, we have a very complex landscape when trying to interpret and to trust published studies. The first one will be, we have citation blindness. This is, it is important because the word that we look might be overlooked as citations clusters around so few popular papers. We also have information overload. This is like the sheer volume of publications make it hard to separate signal from noise. We also have fragmented access. This means that paywalls, we have paywalls and scattered sources. These create barriers to full evidence picture. And we also have varying quality and lack of reproducibility, as we saw in the previous examples. These studies can differ widely, like in rigor, in design, in reporting standards, and most of them cannot be replied. And this undermines confidence. Together, all these challenges makes it very, very difficult to build on prior research with certainty. Another example that we have, it is very, very, very famous. Can you go to the next slide, please? Is one very bad example on how to lose $100 million in research and development. Maybe you already heard about it. It is very, very sound. It happened in 2000. Well, it started in 2010. Over 2010, there were some researchers that published a very important paper in a high-profile publisher, which is Nature. This group from Lee and Collapse, they reported that a small molecule inhibitor that is called USP14. This is an enhanced inhibitor that activates or has some activity in the proteasome, and it promotes the clearance of proteins that are linked to some neurodegenerative diseases. This product, this inhibitor, because of the importance as a new drug against a lot of different disease, the researchers, this finding was very exciting. It suggested a new therapy strategy. However, later, years later, when other researchers, other groups were trying to replicate these effects of this specific inhibitor on the proteasome, they noted that it was showing no significant effect on protein degradation. This was kind of like looked or discovered in 2016. It was also published. However, it wasn't like significant for other research group. It was not significant, not fully appreciated by them, and it was like overlooked. It passed. On 2020, this same product was tried to be applied on clinical trials on a couple of patients with different types of disease, including multiple myeloma, and this drug was causing severe lung toxicity. This was already being published and being reported in the past years. However, it was no notice. This led to two treatment-related deaths occurring the treatment. And also, besides having patients harmed, we also lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay? Can you go to the next slide? So the way that we traditionally address this type of issues, the way that we, as researchers, look up for information is like we look for a topic. In this case, I am going to have like this example, USP14. We look for it. We will find the traditional way, 474 total citations for this original paper. At first sight, we will see, oh, that's a lot of citations. This means that it is a promising target. This is something good that I need to follow, I need to try. However, this is a high amount of information, 474 papers. I will need to manually review each of them and, conclude by myself what is good or if it's something contradictory on them. This huge amount of information that has to be manually reviewed can very easily get me to miss critical contradictions, because it is very it's almost impossible that I can get all this information, read like very fast. However, with Scite, we have the AI help, and using smart citations from Scite, I can do the same exact research work in just a few seconds, and it will lead me to make more informed decisions. I have 474 total citations. I can find that from those citations, one is supporting work for that specific paper. However, I will notice that 318 of those citations that I found in total, they are only mentioning that paper, that research. That means maybe they are mentioning that it didn't work in the paper, and it's just negative, negative type of information. I can also find using Scite that I have one contrasting citation over there, and this immediately can turn on a red flag for me. I can go directly to that specific article, to that specific scientific context, and I can, like review and see what they are talking about to make a better informed decision. Okay, so that's the good news. We have Scite. This Scite index can help us to identify whether the findings are confirmed or challenged by later studies. We can spot areas where evidence is robust versus uncertain, and we can also navigate literature more effectively, reducing reliance on irreproducible claims. So these domain level insights will make us easier to evaluate the reliability of the research and supports a more reproducible science. And well, that's everything from my side. I will go back to Chris because we are going to do some practical application.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Yes, so hopefully, this part of the session has been informative, highlighting, what corporate R&D is all about, all the different roles that are leveraging scientific literature for various steps and use cases throughout the corporate R&D workflow, but also highlighting some of the challenges that corporate researchers in particular are faced with, whether that's, ensuring that the information they have represents, reproducible experiments and methodologies that they can leverage for their research, whether that is overcoming, the necessity to have AI rights to a lot of the content that they want to analyze with AI, as they seek to, overcome information overload, and really help them to achieve their goals and their use cases in a most efficient way. So now we will focus in on a practical application. And what I'm showing you here are just 5 kind of specific use cases that would be relevant in a corporate R&D setting. Just 5 of really tens or hundreds of different use cases that may occur, or types of prompts that a corporate researcher or someone involved in corporate R&D might come up with to support their work. So these are things such as checking a claim that has been made in the research, comparing 2 different processes or materials or technologies, diving into safety and regulatory risks, understanding how sustainable a product might be, or helping to understand also, how reproducible something is, how robust the methodology that they're looking at is, and whether they should use it or seek to use it also in their research. So what we are going to do today in the practical application, so what we'll ask you to try out, we'll focus around number 1 here, claim check. So looking to really understand, if the claims being made, are they supported or more contrasted by other publications in the literature. So in the chat now, you should be able to find a list of claim examples, which you are free to choose one to try out in the practical application in a moment. I've tried to provide some examples from different industries or relevant to different industries in that sort of list of claims, or you can feel free to use something that is more relevant to you personally. And what we'll be asking you to do is, query prompt Scite assistant to generate information or responses related to that claim and how well supported it is or not. And then we'll be doing this in table mode. And so in table mode, then you'll be able to create additional columns around how supported a claim might be or how contrasted it might be, but also look at other things like limitations, sample size, headline results, etc. So for our industry application, practical application today, we're focusing on a claim check. You have access to that list of claims you can choose from, or you use your own. And within Scite Assistant, I would encourage you to use the table mode. And then once you have your response, you can start to add some different columns to that. As I mentioned, supported and contrasted, but also sample size, modality, whether it was a lab or field setting, headline results, major limitations, etc., and so on. And once you have a result, you're welcome also to, say in the chat whether the claim you were investigating seems to be more supported or contrasted. I will also work through an example in a moment. I'll give you a minute or two to get started on your own investigation. And then I'll switch over to Scite Assistant and work through a simple example. All right, I'm going to stop sharing this slide and change over to Scite Assistant. All right, so here I am in Scite Assistant. And first of all, I'm just going to have a quick look at the settings, because as you have probably learned from the other courses in our series, there are a whole bunch of different settings here that you can adjust. For instance, you can choose which LLM you want to help power your search. In this case, I'm using the new ChatGPT 5 Mini. And you can adjust the number of publications to be more comprehensive. If you select more publications, then the response will take a little bit longer to generate. So for purposes here, I'm going to keep it just to 20, so it goes a little bit quicker. All right, so I think I copied in. Now that's my Zoom. And let me get the prompt I made previously. All right, so I have a prompt here. I'm looking at this claim, graphene enhanced composites improve tensile strength by more than 20%. And I'm asking Scite assistant to summarize peer-reviewed evidence for and against this claim. And as you're probably used to now, make sure, did I do this in table mode? I think so. Let's see. As you're probably used to now, the AI assistant is first generating an additional prompts in the background, and then selecting the most relevant content to include in the response. And in my case, this is just 20 articles that should then be in the response. So what you see here now is a list of content, and already, hopefully this is not too small, but you can see that there is a response here already, focusing in on how, whether or not the article in question is supporting the claim of whether graphene, in this case, provides an addition more than 20% additional tensile strength to materials. I'm going to add a few more columns now. First of all, two custom columns. Supported claims. So you have a title, and then you can put some text in to provide what you want to appear in the response. And I'm going to have a list, so I'm going to use bullet points for that. So I'll add that column. And I'm going to add another custom column. This would be contrasting. Again, as bullet points. And then I'm going to add just two more. One is another custom one. I'm just asking for the top 3 key findings. And finally, I would like to have a limitations column, which is one of the standard ones. And so what you can see here is when investigating a claim, you can very quickly create a very structured overview of some of the key articles related to your claim question, really diving in and easily able to pull out and extract, the specific text around what might be supported, what is contrasting, in this case, also looking at some other headline results, and critically also when understanding the reproducibility of the methodology or the article or the science that was published, the limitations column. So I hope that all worked well for all of you, and you're able to generate some interesting responses to the claims you were interested in. All right, so with that sort of brings to an end all the information we have to share with you today, and indeed from the entire course. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed it so far, but we still have a few minutes to address your questions in the Q&A session. And for that, I will go back to our presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris and Karina. Just seeing a few chat comments here. Love this tool. The table format is really useful. Happy to hear that you're finding it useful. If you want to go in and revisit any of the claims later on, check the table mode, spend some more time in there, and any questions do come up, just know that you can always reach out to us. One thing just before we start with the questions here, if you're interested in bringing Scite to your organization, to your team, there we go. Or also the AI rights, the AI and TDM rights that Chris mentioned towards the beginning of the presentation. I'm just adding a link here in the chat. Feel free to reach out. You can also always send an email to me. I think it's in the chat here several times. It's jheeson@researchsolutions.com, and then we'd be happy to discuss your individual use case. Okay, so let's dive into questions. And just a quick comment here, you can also upvote questions if you see some from other people on the call that you're interested in as well. So that'll help me make sure that we spend time on the most relevant ones here. Okay, so the first one is, does Scite help with acquiring licenses to the required resources data if the enterprise wants to build a custom Gen AI solution for their research needs?
So research solutions. So this is one use case that we are focused on, not via the Scite product itself, but via our Article Galaxy product. We currently, since 1 month now, support the ability to acquire AI rights for analyzing content with generative AI tools. That's the first use case we've organized with publishers. We are and have been discussing with those same publishers to be able to license content for training models as well. But that particular use case is not currently supported. So the AI rights to actually train a large language model for internal purposes. But for extracting information, this is what we're able to support from participating publishers currently. So if you're, for instance, if you're creating, you have a generative AI application, but you want to create a RAG, a retrieval augmented generation framework, where you want to pull data and information from journal articles, then that would indeed be supported for those participating publishers.
Awesome, great. Thanks so much for answering that. Good question. Let me see. Could you please announce at the end of the session when and how you will send out the certificates? Yes, good question. Let me answer that just for the ones that might have missed the beginning. So if you attended minimum of 3 sessions live, I'll spend some time this afternoon to figure out who of you will be able to receive it. And then I'll be sending out the certificates likely today. If it's too many, then might be sometime next week, but no need for you to reach out if you attended 3 sessions. If you weren't able to make a few live, I'd say send me an email, or if you filled out that poll, that is probably still up somewhere. I also have your email addresses, and then I'll be able to contact you as well. Okay, this might have been answered because it was asked before, but Chris, would you be able to show again how to get to table mode from the kind of like summary mode in Assistant?
Yeah, just a second. Let me go back to Scite Assistant. So there are actually kind of 2 ways. One is right at the beginning. So here, when you come to Scite.ai, you have just the normal assistant mode. You have our other search application where you can search through metadata filtering and lists and so on. And then tables here is specifically for generating the table mode for Insight Assistant. So you can do that at the very beginning of your query. But I believe if you start off with just Assistant and you generate it here, then somewhere here, once it's generated, you can also switch to table mode. But I think it probably has to wait until it's generated. But here also, once you've generated an initial response, for Scite.ai Assistant, there is another button here, I think at the bottom of the page, that you can click to actually then generate that again in table mode.
Awesome, great. Yeah, you can always go back to the settings, so that little like settings wheel as well, and toggle on and off the tables mode there as well if at any point you're looking for it.
Oh yeah, here, here's table mode here.
Yeah, and then just like apply again, and there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome, great. My research is in a preprint heavy domain. Does Scite allow users to add preprint papers as context for the model?
Yes, Scite already indexes a lot of preprints. So yeah, if your public paper is already published as a preprint, then most likely we have already indexed it as well.
Great. I tested Scite on a few topics. I had difficulty with historical literature on Central Europe economic and business issues. What other publishing houses are you about to gain for your project?
Yeah, so we are in constant discussion with publishers. We currently cover, I think, over 45 publishers. There are a few very big ones, like Springer Nature and Elsevier, who we're still discussing with. Yeah, we're in constant discussion with them. We hope to get them on board sooner than later to make things more complete in terms of information which is derived from the full text of content. That said, we do index all of the content from those publishers as well, leveraging data from Crossref and OpenAlex for that purpose at the title and abstract level. So yeah, you should still get results or relevant content, but yeah, there may be some key details missing if we haven't actually mined the content from the full text.
Great. Yeah, interesting question. Is it possible to use Scite to search patent literature? If so, how? And if not, do you see it as one of the use cases for Scite?
We definitely see it as one of the use cases for Scite. It's something we are working on at the moment. So we've done quite a lot of research into the use case of patents and how patents also cite so-called, non-patent literature. Most of the time, that's scientific journal articles. So yeah, this is something that we're working on at the moment. Yeah, in the next couple of months, we'll be able to say more about that.
Awesome. Does Scite find all articles or only those that are open access? Good question.
It finds all articles. So we are indexing every single journal, well, maybe not every single, but the vast majority of journal articles are out there. The way we do this is leveraging not only data directly from publishers, but also the complete Crossref database, also OpenAlex database as well, plus a number of different preprint servers such as bioRxiv, arXiv, and so on. So yeah, it's not limited to open access. We are definitely indexing all content we can. And for participating publishers, this includes the full text of paywalled content. So the snippets you see are often from the full text of non-open access content.
Thank you so much. Okay, what are AI rights via Article Galaxy? Can you explain a bit further?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, a key hurdle for users is actually understanding when they have so-called AI rights to journal articles and how to acquire them if they do not. So what happened with the advent of generative AI 3 years ago is that all the major publishers took a bit of a big step back as they were very unsure what this meant in terms of their content being used and consumed by AI models and they're essentially sort of losing control of the copyright to that content. So basically what they said at that point is that, users should not be uploading those journal articles to generative AI applications because of the potential for those models to consume that content, to be trained and learn from that content, to be able to regenerate that content in lots of different formats without any clear attribution to the original content. In the meantime, things have evolved in the last 3 years. Now it's much clearer. Publishers are much more open to also providing licenses directly to customers for AI rights. What that means is then, especially for larger companies, they already do this, that for the subscriptions that a company has from a publisher, that they can acquire also the AI rights on top of those subscriptions. In Article Galaxy, what we are doing for participating publishers is that on an article-by-article basis, when you see there's an article of interest, but the AI rights are not in place, you will see whether they're available for acquisition. So next to the fee that it costs to buy the PDF for human consumption, there's a very small markup to enable also you to have the AI rights, the ability or the right to upload that content to a generative AI application for analysis. And then once it's acquired, this is a perpetual right for your organization. That means if some other researcher in your organization has previously purchased the AI rights, this is a permanent right that other people in your organization also have to that content. At the same time, if your company has rights directly from a publisher or via a reproduction rights organization, or if it's open access, CC-BY, you'll also be shown that these rights have already been granted within the Article Galaxy tool. So Article Galaxy is a document delivery platform, provides access to all journal content, and now in addition, the ability to purchase AI rights from participating publishers.
Awesome, great, yeah. And Article Galaxy belongs to our product family, to which Scite also belongs. So that's all under the umbrella of Research Solutions.
Correct,
okay.
and they're very integrated as well. So within Scite, if you have an enterprise license to Scite.ai, often what you'll see is actually these access, in the responses, you'll see that you'll be able to access content if you don't already have access via Article Galaxy, and then get the AI rights there as well.
Yeah, so feel free to reach out if you want to learn more, of course, about Article Galaxy and how that could work at your organization. Okay, let's answer the last few questions before we wrap up here on time. How to upload or include articles from my own collected papers for a review if they're not given from Scite searches?
So yeah, there is functionality to upload articles to include in your analysis. I haven't done it recently, but we can have a look if I can find it. On here. Let's see. I have not done this recently. I think I might have to answer that question later. But there is an ability to upload your own content. I just need to find it. As I said, I haven't done it recently. But yeah, we'll send instructions in the follow-up.
Yeah, no worries. Might have been a big question for the last 2 minutes. That's on me for just calling that out. But yeah, feel free to send your email and then we'd be happy to take that question offline. Okay, let's see. 1 or 2 more questions. Do you think AI-assisted literature reviews will emerge as a distinct methodological category within review research?
At the moment, how the situation is that generally, increasingly, AI summaries are kind of accepted as a format. But what is critical is that there always has to be human oversight to them. So what you might have noticed with some like author instructions for journal publications, Some journals say that they don't want any AI-generated content being submitted for publication, but more and more other journals are saying, yes, they accept that, there's going to be aspects of the content which is generated by an AI. But what is always critical is that there is human oversight to that in the end, a human is responsible for the content of that piece of text, that publication.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're right on time. So thank you so much again to our speakers, Chris and Karina, for joining, for sharing all of this, extremely insightful. Thank you so much to all of you listening in. If it's the first time, if you've attended all of the sessions of the bootcamp, I'm really happy that you've joined us. I hope you found it valuable. You'll be receiving the replay, the slides. I'll be asking for some feedback. So I'd love just to hear about your experience, what we could have done better or different next time. And with that being said, hope you all have a really great weekend and see you on the next one.
Thank you very much.